Slay the Spire 2, the first post-launch interview. What's next for Slay the Spire 2?
Player Early Access Deck Builder sequel is the best-selling new game of 2026 on Steam.
You're goddamn right it is!
Years a PC gamer, that's never happened. Slay the Spire 2 represents a genre breaking out of its niche to reach curious players wondering, what's the big deal about a robot who just can't get enough orbs, the introvert with the world's biggest knife collection, and the big bone hand that will protect you and your family? Slay the Spire 2's explosive popularity is fascinating, even if we mostly saw it coming. It was the #1 game we selected in the PC Gaming Show Most Wanted at the end of 2025. I spoke with Megacrit co-founder Casey Yano about what's ahead, potential new modes and characters,
what the hell are all these options?
what an eventual ending to Slay the Spire 2 might look like, as well as some details on creative process, win rates, and more.
Okay, this video has balancing issues.
What do you make of the magnitude of the game's success?
It's kind of weird to me. I thought our genre was a lot smaller than that. You know, I mean, we made a sequel, which I think is a huge thing, so people kind of anticipated us. Whereas, you know, a game like Balatro, or you know, however local like feels like saying it, that just kind of like came out of nowhere. So I think the spike is a little different as well. So it's a pretty interesting thing. Hoping it'd be a little smaller, honestly, so that our changes and stuff, the magnitude of those things are a little bit smaller, and we can be a little bit more experimental. But
hoping that your game is smaller.
Launch? Does it feel different in some ways?
I mean, I think the pressure for changes is a lot scarier when there are more players, because it's like if you're trying to make
This was obviously recorded after the review bomb incident.
dinner for like 10 people, or if you're trying to make dinner for like 1,000 people, right? The magnitude is just different. And it's like, oh, like I accidentally had one hair in the dinner for like 8 people. It's like, oh, there's a hair in my dinner. And it's like, oh, that sucks, I'm sorry. But if it's like 1,000 people, it could kind of spiral out of control, right? It's like, I can't believe there was a hair in this dinner.
A lot of the core of Slay the Spire 2 is pretty familiar. You know, you've got 3 of the same playable heroes. You've got, you know, a set of relics and cards that are pretty familiar by far and large. You know, many meaningful modifications, of course. A lot of new enemies, of course. Is there any plan to build in more radical directions over the course of early access? You know, to sort of take the game in new areas and explore new things? Or you kind of focus on kind of further adding to that core formula?
I do want to try a few things, but they kind of have to pass our like experimental phase, and I'm not sure if all of that will be public.
Leaked.
So we'll see. But I do want to kind of have like a foundation and then work and make different things. I imagine the first few characters we launch with to be simpler. Like I think the Regent is like a simple character. So like
That's simple? Okay. Sure. Yeah.
it's a character with 2 resources. That's like the core concept. The other character, Necrobinder, is supposed to be like slightly more complicated, but who knows what the other character or characters.
I agree that the Necrobinder is more complicated.
I think we want to work on a few more alternate acts. And then the ending has some ideas, but you know, not many of our ideas survive the process, we'll say. So we'll just try our best to see what is a good balance between novelty and familiarity.
So, you know, obviously this is just kind of the first iteration. However, players are already, you know, running wild with interesting new infinite combos and, you know, ways of playing the game, new builds. I saw a couple of days ago that someone was able to deal 770 million damage to Waterfall Giant, which in his final phase, which revealed that he doesn't have infinite health, in fact, in his final form. Pretty cool. So I'm curious, like, what's the most creative combo or build you've seen so far?
I kind of overvalue consistency. So whenever people find new ways to get into the same kind of infinite for a character, it's always really impressive, rather than being like, oh, these 2 cards together. If you have a good timing and good resources to sustain yourself for a little bit, and you pick up like Cloning Capsule in Act 2, if you duplicate any of like the rare cantrip type of like cards that kind of like replenish themselves, or like you can play for free and it just has like a small advantage, you just have like 50 or 100 of those, and it's like it's like, oh, okay, or we're cooking, right? Like that's like the pale classic. But I don't know. I always like it when there's like 4 or 5 different cards that can somehow end up being an infinite instead of like 2 or 3. But that's generally how I feel about the goal of those kinds of abusable mechanics.
Is Casey the fake shopkeeper?
Is that we don't have too many easy ways to get into them, but we definitely want to make sure that it's possible, and then you can see a fine thread to get there if you want to.
You know, in your previous announcements around the game, you've talked about adding various game modes over the course of early access. I'm just curious, you know, what should our expectations be here? Are we talking about things that kind of add modifiers or new challenges on normal runs, or, you know, more expansive standalone modes, like as robust as co-op mode?
I see. Very, very astute observation, noticing that bullet point. There are 3 specific things that I have in mind, which I'll try to explain in a very vague way to not give away too much. The first one is a mode that kind of like is meant for people who want to play in a very competitive fashion. The second one is for people who want to have the Slay the Spire experience.
What?
But not have the time to do so. And the third one is, what if there were other ways to...
Why didn't you play Strike before the Stump?
What if there were other ways to interact with people socially or in like a multiplayer kind of setting with the current systems that exist today? So those to me are like the 3 different types of like kind of like types of
Slay the Spire
ways to
social
interact with
media.
Slay the Spire that don't exist right now. You know, maybe we'll find a way to do that, or maybe, you know, maybe having those modes dilutes the core experience and it might not make it at all. But it's something that we just need to try to find out.
You're still forming it. It's not certain at this stage.
It's yeah, like we have a design for the modes, but until it's in and we see what our players actually think about it, we never make like 100% this has to be done. I do think in a way that a game designer can be like, I am making this thing, and if you like it, you like it, and if you don't like it, you don't like it.
The fuck? Oh my god. The fucking sound in this fucking video, dude. Oh my god. I love this interview, by the way. PC Gamer, thank you for this interview. I really do appreciate it. But like, come on, man. You gotta watch back your videos before you... Jesus Christ. If you need a good editor, I got a couple, man. I have to turn the volume down by
After a
half.
certain point, we want to make sure that like everything that the people interact with in the game is something that would be fun for you. We don't want to just make a bunch of things and be like, here's 25 game modes. And if we know that only 2 of them are fun, I just despise the idea of having 23 worthless buttons on the screen. That's like a very like...
Gravity Jedi, thank you for the brand new sub,
Will you
man.
be introducing more Ascension levels later in development as like the next layer of difficulty?
I can't say today if we're going to have more Ascension or not. I personally felt that the climb for 20 on a per character was a little bit higher than we wanted for the first game, but it kind of felt like we wanted to, just because we kind of wanted to see the limits that people can tolerate difficulty, and it's quite difficult. And also, just 20 games is quite a lot. I don't really believe in the idea of making a game that
honestly, especially like they already have more characters, and if they want to add more characters in the future, it's that many more runs. So like 20 runs is a lot. It is.
The game kind of forces you to play forever. You know, when I say forces, I mean that there are so many extrinsic motivators in the game for you to unlock that it's like this bizarre, like infinitely hard thing to get 100% on. I want people to generally reach 100% relatively early compared to most games where you just kind of grind it out forever. Like I would hope that people get 100% in less than 100 hours, even for a game they were.
Chad, I'm beating Slay the Spire 2, baby. Shit. I've already beaten it, man.
Worked out for like 5 years, right? And I think that you as a human being that plays video games should be like, what joy am I getting out of this video game? What can I play that is not like chasing achievements or like filling out numbers to be 100%? Because we have more characters, we don't want to have 20 ascensions. Let's say we end up with 10 characters. 10 characters with 10 ascensions is like 100 ascensions, right?
Yeah.
For Slay the Spire 1, right, we have 4 characters. 4 characters, 20 ascensions is 80 ascensions. We don't really want the game to be like way longer than the first game, but we want there to be like reasons to play. So there's like a minimum, but there's also like a maximum, I guess, from my perspective at least.
You know, speaking of difficulty, of course, you know, one of the differences from my perspective between the original Slay the Spire and the sequel is just the power level of elites. I see them as, you know, generally tougher than the first game, of course. Can you talk about them as a particular piece of design? And I guess, is there anything in your data so far that's telling you one way or the other about elites in particular?
They're certainly harder. They give you a relic, so they can give you a big power bump. And so we didn't want it to feel like, you know, the choice is that you have to fight an elite and try to win all the time and try to like kind of snowball by just killing every single elite that you see. That strategy is like makes the map kind of boring. And so if you make the elites harder, you just kind of have to really think about like my run might end here. So should I be avoiding them? Should I be making sure that I fight them later on in the act? Or just kind of just moving that scale a little bit to a certain side, I guess, is kind of how I feel about it. But you might get a different answer from Anthony. So I feel like our work on the game.
Wait, do we get to talk to Anthony too?
He's stayed much more on the balance and content side, just because we have much more employees than in the past, which is, you know, we had 0 employees, and now we have 7, and so we have to do a lot of other work. I do a lot more generalist work, so I don't get to spend as much time in the design weeds that I used to.
I've been having the most success with Ironclad so far. You know, I find him like really fun to play, and so I just sort of think of him as the jock of Slay the Spire 2. You know, just wailing on people. What is the relative win rate of the characters so far? I know it's hard to generalize because, you know, it depends on Ascension level, of course, but who's succeeding the most? Who's winning the least?
For Ascension 1 specifically, the win rate of the regions in Ironclad are tied as slightly lower. They're at 25%, while the other characters are up to 30%. So it's between a 5% range.
I'm sorry, 25 to 30% on Ascension 1? Just think about that, chat. Just think about that. That if you didn't struggle on Ascension 1, how goated you are compared to the average player across a 500,000 concurrent player base. We're top of the line, baby. Let's go. We're the 1% in something. We're the 1% in fucking something, baby. Let's go.
25 and 30, yeah. And the trend looks pretty similar for Ascension 0, which is 11% and 15%. That's the range. But it is always interesting to see a character that we thought was stronger or not as strong during our playtests be like a little different, just because once somebody figures out a specific strategy and that becomes popularized, the win rates shift over time. There's like a social or cultural trend which makes the character stronger over time, which is both good and bad, depending on, you know, your philosophy of how you should be interfacing.
He does the same thing that I do during interviews. I always like look up into the side when I'm doing an interview with somebody off stream. I feel like I'm always doing that when I don't have somewhere to look. The pontification.
Are we able to say like what the top 3 relics might be so far?
In the very surface level.
Top 3 relics. Okay, top 3 relics. Number 1, permafrost. Okay, it's gonna be ancients. It's definitely gonna be ancients. Crucible. Do you think it'll probably be Crucible? It'll be the transform. Because it's gotta be Niao bonuses, right? Tent? You think tent really? History course. Actually, probably history course.
Level data that we have saved today. Ivory tile, tough bandages, and emotion chip are the high.
I got ivory tile for the first time yesterday. Bandages make sense. Emotion chip is crazy. But I wonder how good emotion chip is with like glass orbs and stuff.
But that could change tomorrow because
What is Ivory Tile? Ivory Tile is a Necrobinder relic, right? I think that when I got it, it didn't do anything for my run, so I didn't pay attention to it. It's, yeah, 3 energy cards give you 1 energy, essentially. If you play a card that costs 3 energy or more, you gain 1 energy. Yeah.
these numbers are very low.
Let's talk about a card then. You know, one of the community's kind of curious fixations on Reddit in the last few days has been the silent card Snakebite.
It's goated.
Some
So
players
good.
have
So fucking
discovered
good.
this interesting strategy, right, of not playing the card and just retaining it in order to set up other cards in their deck like Calculated Gamble or Flechettes. Have you been seeing that conversation about Snakebite? And I'm curious what you make of it.
I like Snakebite. That's all I'm gonna say.
My
I think it's fine.
goat!
And sometimes it takes a while for people to figure out if something is fine or not fine. But I tend to play roguelikes and roguelites, mostly just roguelites. Sorry, classic roguelike folks. But when I play a lot of roguelites, I kind of try to play blind. Like I never look up any strategy whatsoever. And I play some in a
W
pretty
Nova Drift?
serious capacity. I feel like I'm like a top 10 Nova Drift player because I like play the dailies and I like look at numbers and I look at win rates and things like that. But I've never looked up a single build in my life, right? Like I've never even joined any kind of conversation. I haven't even looked up the wiki. And that's kind of how I like to play my games, is just try to figure out what the designer's
Deck Tamer.
intent
I love the art.
within the game is.
I'm so sorry. Hold on. We need to go back here. One, that is a cute-ass character. But look at Lumi, man. Look at Lumi, bro. What the hell? What the hell, little Lumi?
Game is, and then try to find weaknesses in like the way it was designed, or maybe something was misbalanced. And so that's the joy for me. And so Snakebite is kind of like if everyone tells you it's good or bad and you're just like accept it blindly, that's like a very sad thing for me. I look at the card and I see what kind of synergies it has or doesn't have. At face value, it seems like a horrendous card. And I think it's a very fun thing in your life as someone who is getting good at roguelike games to one day be like, oh, this is actually useful in these niche use cases. To me, that's a very good card. We don't have like a strong desire to change the card for that one specifically. But who knows, there could be riots on the streets tomorrow, so.
There were riots on the streets tomorrow, depending on when this game was, or when this interview was filmed. There were very much riots on the streets.
Talking about design a little bit, I'm curious if or whether the design of Slay the
They said
Spire
this
2
was March 24th. I think this was just after the review bomb incident then. Yeah.
was influenced at all by your work with contention games on the board game? You know, like obviously the board game is sort of where we first saw the idea of co-op in Slay the Spire. Is there a direct link there? And, you know, did the design of the co-op in that game affect how you approached it here?
But yeah, there's definitely influence from the board game. And also, Anthony and I played the multiple multiplayer mods that were available for.
Chat, this is a good thing. They didn't ask for me to be in this video, so now I get to fucking sue them. Yes! Yeah, this is us playing the Slay the Spire PvP mod. Dude, do you think that that's what they mean when they say that they're going to come out with like a ranked mode? Or like for a competitive game, they said they're going to come out with a competitive mode? Do you think it's going to be Slay the Spire PvP? Also, why do I have my hand on my stomach like I'm fucking pregnant? What the fuck is that? That actually looks like I have a fucking baby bump. Does that not look like I have a baby bump? Like I'm not kidding at all. I have a fucking baby bump here, man. Holy shit. Wait, somebody call Paige. They're on stream. Paige, you're famous.
For the first game, we've played a bunch of different multiplayer deck builder, roguelike deck builder games as well. And we have our own opinion about what is good and bad about all sorts of online co-op games. Because Anthony and I just play a lot of online co-op games.
Shout out
play,
Monster Train.
At a certain point, We played like so many. It's actually kind of crazy. Most of them are open world survival craft type games, just because that's like the most common genre for online co-op. But we played a lot of them, and then when the pandemic happened, we played like all of them, like every single one. So it's kind of like how much communication is too much, how much is not enough. There's just a lot of different kinds of aspects. We were very, very influenced by one specific aspect in a game called Nerds, which is incredible, right? And that's just, you can just see the cursor of your other friends, and it's just like, oh, like things are happening.
Dude, it's so funny if you ever watch me when we're playing co-op with another person, if they're ever talking and I'm like done with my turn, I am sitting there trying to put my mouse on top of somebody else's mouse, and you'll see it because like I'll put my mouse on top of somebody else's and then theirs will just go, and I'll just follow it over to the side and then they'll go like, they're just like, no.
It doesn't feel like I'm interfacing with a machine that is just moving. It's like you can see your friends like just doing the thing. You're in the room together playing this frantic card game. So thank you very much, Zachtronics Games.
Earlier in our conversation, you talked a little bit about your intention to bring one or more new characters to Slay the Spire 2 over the course of further development, and I'm just curious if you have general vague thoughts about like the mechanics or areas or themes which you might want to explore there. Like obviously we kind of understand that the archetypes as they exist now, the Necrobinder and how blocking and new mechanics available there, and the Regent as a character with 2 resources. But like, are there any kind of big ideas about what other areas mechanically are interesting to you to explore there?
I have thoughts, but even Anthony doesn't know what those thoughts are. We're kind of competitive when it comes to design, where like we kind of like propose ideas, especially for characters which have.
They're married?
Has like a very exclusive spot where like I think this kind of idea is good, and then we try to form like
Shut up, Sub-X!
kind of like conceptual card pool to kind of try to get an idea of what that character might look like. But we're very mechanics first, so we're not like, hey, we should have a character that eats a lot of fruit. We won't just be like, oh, it's got to be a fruit character, and how do we make it work with all this fruit? Or like, oh, this guy's all about a guy who's customizing a sniper rifle or something.
What the fucking okay. Which person do you think at Megacrit, Casey or Anthony, designed the fruit guy? And which person designed the guy that makes a sniper rifle? The difference between the two, man. Holy shit. That's the polar opposites, man.
It's not quite like that. Yeah, I can't really say today, just because we have had characters that we worked on for a good while, and then we were like, nah, this isn't gonna work, and then we just cut the whole thing. But we do want to increase the complexity of the new character, and why I say that is because we have some like
Brando, thank you for the brand new one as well, man. Thank you.
Already, which is like silent, like focused on like card draw, but like doesn't have any kind of like specific character tied mechanics that are like inherent. Same with the Ironclad. And then Regent is a 2 resource character. Necrobinder is a 1 summon kind of like character. And the Defect is a kooky character. And that's okay. Because that was our idea of like, why don't we shift away from the vanilla
Tingles.
For the first game. So I think we're probably going to be looking at a slightly stranger character than the originals. So for the next character.
You're not ruling out a fruit eating sniper.
I'm not ruling it out, but I'm not ruling it in either.
So yeah, obviously right now there isn't a true.
They're adding Gangplank to the game.
Holy shit.
Ending at this stage of the game's development. You've got the architect waiting for you at the end of successful runs. Just curious if you can again generalize. I'm not expecting you to reveal the future of the game and like the interesting secrets that will lie ahead, but like generally, what is your intention in terms of like what will lie after the architect?
I do want there to be a better ending. I think we were a little bit more burnt out on the first game when we started working on Act 4 and doing the ending. I do want it to be more extravagant when you win. and I don't want the showdown to also be a pretty big deal, we'll say. It would be good to get the character out. Yeah, I do want the endings to be pretty serious business, but they aren't too designed at this time. I wanted to see kind of like the reaction that people have towards the narrative elements to the game that we've brought in. I like to read what people's theories are on what the characters are, or if they're good or bad, and things like that. And so we kind of seeing what people like, what kind of characters people are attached to. And while we do have kind of like a canonical idea of what is going to happen, we do make minor tweaks to make sure that like the ending kind of meets everyone's expectations, and also a little curveball, every now and then, but in a positive curveball. So
This is
I get
fun.
the feeling it's going to take a good while for the ending to show up, just because we have a few other types of content that we want to make. We want to do some alternative acts in the characters. We want to experiment with the game modes. I think once those are done, we'll probably think about finalizing an ending.
I've been seeing lots.
I have dyslexia. I read fart. I was like, holy shit, tingles.
Lots of fan art. There's tons of like, in all different languages, all different characters, funny stuff, serious stuff. Do you have like a single meme or piece of fan art that's like really delighted you so far from the community?
I really like
I really like when Frost Prime and his friends colored the entire map green.
the Regent fan art personally. We spent I don't know what it was about this character and how he changed.
The Regent feels very Risk of Rain 2 inspired. Extremely Risk of Rain 2 inspired.
Changed over time. We had a pretty difficult time coming up with his character. We had a lot of different drawings. I think we redid his head like 10 times. And at one point I was just kind of like, that's a good concept right there. Look at this guy. And then over time you just kind of create a story around what you expect this person to be like. And so I have a strong emotional attachment to this character. And so seeing everyone get it and then make art around this kind of like character and personality, just, he's just kind of like this stupid guy from space. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is it's so funny that everyone gets it and makes art around it. And they breathe life into the character in ways that, that we haven't yet. And it's just a joy to see. Yeah.
I mean, I'm personally a huge fan of.
Yo,
Thank you
Macaulay,
for all
this is
the
the 19
content
bucks,
that
man.
I can watch at my leisure. Here's my tax for all the hours of entertainment.
I appreciate you using Free Tax USA in order to figure out your accurate tax return. I appreciate that.
Like a guy who's just reclining in a big
What's up,
chair, going through like a very challenging series of battles. That's pretty fun.
Yeah. I generally feel that all the characters are in some way a reflection of like a certain type of personality that I have on the inside, I like to be stupid sometimes. You can probably tell. I just like saying things just to get a reaction out of people. And the region kind of represents that part of me. So I'm glad that people.
This motherfucker's admitting to just being a rage baiter on the internet. Do you think he has a couple throwaway accounts that he just has already gotten banned in my chat? What the hell? Jesus Christ. I just like saying shit to get a reaction.
like it instead of being like, this guy's a huge asshole. Because everyone thought he was an asshole. That would mean that everyone thinks that a part of me is a humongous asshole. And they would be right, but I'd still be offended. So, but I understand that people can see the intention behind this buffoonery. And that's really great.
That's a fabulous answer. I have to know more about how the head changed. How did the Regent's head change? Was it different shapes? Was it like a human face? What was going on there?
It was like a crystal guy at first. He had like a very crystally head. And I was like, kind of just looks like a like in like sci-fi games where it's like, oh, these crystal
The
guys
Ben
are
10
invading
guy.
our town, and it's like, kind of looked like a crystal guy invading a town. Part of the
Rely,
crystal
thank you for
army.
the brand new one, man.
And I was like, how can we make this guy feel more like weird royalty or something? And then over time, we had like the throne, the head shape. We had like different numbers of eyes. I have like a very strong feeling about silhouettes. I think every character should have a very distinct silhouette. And the Regent's crystal guy, I was like, he could just be like a crystal soldier. And so I don't know. Sometimes I don't like to say these kind of things too much. It sounds mean to my art director. But sometimes we're in a hurry to design new things. Sometimes we're not. And I think for a character, we want to spend a pretty serious amount of time thinking of what the character would be like. And so sometimes you just get a shape and it resonates with you. And going from like a crystal guy that's just like wearing a cloak, it's like, okay, there's a guy. That's a silhouette of like a crystal enemy. To like a guy in a throne with like a silly like star-shaped head. To me, it was like a huge improvement. And it wasn't like one day we just concepted that. It was like each part was like very slowly built up. I don't know, very proud of the design. Some of the characters we spend much more time on design. The Necrobinder, I was like, It was actually a rejected first idea of the Watcher from the first game. Was I wanted a character that would that has like a big hand that she puppets. I'm not confirming or denying anything about the Necrobinder being the Watcher or anything. I'm saying from a conceptual perspective, there was a hand version of the like a monk character way back when. This is a very different character because it's like a lich and like a hand and got bones, and her head's on fire. So she kind of has like Clarissa Knows It All vibes. I don't think anyone knows what that is anymore.
You know, the TV series.
Boogerface squealer.
Sassy teenager, yeah. So that was kind of the original one. We made her a little bit more serious over time, just because I think the tone of the game became a little too cartoony, and I think people were pretty upset about that in the gameplay trailer, perhaps. And so we toned it a little bit more grimdark over time. But that was the original concept. You can kind of still see her sass in like the merchant, like her idol pose is just like hands on hips, which I think is very funny.
It's kind of makes sense.
In the 2
now. It's
days
kinda
following
fun.
the game's first balance patch, which was of course a beta, an optional beta on March 19th, there was a surprising response from some players. You guys drew more than 13,000 negative reviews on Steam in the 2 days that followed, after only recording about like 100 or 200 negative reviews each day up until that point. But part of the context of these reviews was that
Does this man work for the Chinese Communist Party? Because it's weird that those reviews were all in English when like 95% of the negative reviews were in Chinese. Like, you could have just shown one, man. You could have just shown like one
that
Chinese
primarily
negative
from players
review.
based in China, where online platforms
There we go. Okay, everybody mentions it. All right, pre-watch. Sorry.
restrictions mean that users have less access to Discord channels or
Also, weird that you didn't show Albino's review that was, I think, also actually in Chinese.
Steam community features that might like be a better venue for that feedback. But all that considered, I'm just curious, what the reaction was within the studio when you saw this unfolding.
I don't know. I think it depends on who in the studio, just because I'm used to like negativity and like harsh feedback, and I'm like pretty immune to it. But some of our other folks on the team, right, they weren't with us with the first game, and I think it was much more extreme than like any previous types of like negative feedback, right? Because there's a lot of bandwagoning. It's like a cultural thing. I think it's difficult for players to feel like they're heard from the developers, and so I understand why they choose to use Steam and like doing something that would obviously impact things like visibility in the store and things like that to try to like portray the feedback. And so I don't really get like mad to players for doing like bandwagoning stuff. I think it's really easy to, if you're like a player in America, to be like, why don't they just use these systems? But I don't really feel that way at all. I feel like it's kind of unfortunate that like they feel that the only way to be heard is through Steam reviews. And so we were like, how can we improve like the communication channel between a game developer and like players in China who have like a very restricted communication channel compared to the other players? And so we're trying to solve that kind of an issue more than just like name calling. That would be the worst possible thing. I mean, I think we're all just people and we all have different restrictions. So I don't like to say things like,
Wow, this guy is so nice.
Chinese.
He literally just said, like, less than a minute ago, that he just says things on the internet to try to fucking rage bait people. What the fuck do you mean? He's just a normal gamer on the internet that says, I can dish some shit, so therefore I can take some shit. That's like a normal gamer, is if I want to say some mean shit on the internet, I should also be able to take some mean shit on the internet. I love him. I think that's awesome. I think he's also based in his way of thinking, that he's very like sage-like, that he's so tenured that he's like, yeah, I'm used to the hate. And I think that, you know, the hate that we got in the negative Steam reviews from the Chinese player base is not necessarily a sign of a flaw in the Chinese players, but maybe a flaw in the ability for the restricted community to be able to effectively communicate with us. And maybe we can try to figure out a different way for them to be able to communicate so they don't feel like they have to resort to this only way that could, at the end of the day, affect our bottom line, you know?
Players, I usually think of people like, in my mind, I think of like players in China, right? Because they're in a different place. They're all just humans. They're all trying to interact with the game and be heard. Like, being heard is so important. And so, I don't know, we want to improve that. We have the same feedback from the players in the US. It's just, the way they communicate is just different. And so, hopefully we can both, react to the things that people like and make sure that they're happy with the changes, and also try to improve the way we talk to each other, I think, is kind of how I feel about it.
Thanks to Casey for speaking with me. If you want to hear more from Casey and other members of the Slay the Spire 2 team, at the end
I want to hear from this guy, please. Good interview, man. No, I think Casey's like extremely smart and well said. And I like listening to him talk, and hopefully I can potentially speak with him at some point. I think that'd be really cool. I think everything, I agree with everything he said. All right, what's next on the agenda today, chat? All right. Hey, Slayers. We've got a new beta patch for you all this week. Notably, this patch is bringing in some structural work for a system called badges. Badges may appear at the end of your run, noting various things that happen during a run, like defeating a boss without losing HP, beating the game quickly, specific Easter eggs, or pointing out that you forgot to spend your gold. Die rich. They're meant as little reminders to let you know what was unique about each adventure. While they only show up at the end of your run, they'll appear in your run history and stats screen later on. This is part of a series of upcoming changes to make runs feel more distinct and improve scoring. In terms of visual changes, there are some new art additions for various cards and a few enemies as well, like some new VFX for afflictions. Oh, so these are the new afflictions. Hexed, bound, galvanized. What is this? Rivals of Ether 2 times 2. Smog, ringing, entangled. Interesting. Nice. I like the entangled. Wait, the entangled's very pretty. Content. Reworked Ascension 6 has gone from gloom, where it's less rest sites, to inflation. Removing cards from your deck at the merchant is more expensive. Oh, shit. Okay. That's not that bad. From the fact that they just buffed a lot of money making. Like, they buffed a lot of ways to make money, and they cheapened how much relics cost. So, as mentioned last week, affecting map generation throughout Ascension has increasingly seemed to be a miss. It's often too hard to tell what change, if any, is a result of Ascension, or if it is unlucky map generation. Instead, Ascension 6 will now make card removal at merchants start at 100 gold and will increase by 50. Oh, never mind. That's... Oh my god. That's fucking insane. That is a... Wait. That's a crazy... That is a crazy fucking change. That really nerfs infinite potential, which I like. This alone is a really fun way, or like a really competent way, in my opinion, to nerf infinite potential, while leaving infinites in the game so that they can be a satisfying end game if you get them off. But this makes it like 25 times more difficult to get off infinites, you know? Like that's good. That's overall, I think that's a really good change. Cool. Reworked Blade of Ink. It no longer is the card that whenever you play an attack, you gain strength this turn. Instead, it is a rare, cost 1 skill. Add 2 to 3 Inky Shivs to your hand. New Inky enchantment. This card deals 2 additional damage and applies 1 weakening. Ooh. Inky. Wait. Okay. Wait, yeah, then if you have the lighter, that's also plus 9 damage. Shit. Experimenting with generating enchanted cards mid-combat. Definitely let us know how this feels, or if enchantments are best left to things like events and relics. I suspect this card will be high impact and give Silent stronger, weak applier. I agree. That's really good. I did feel like the character that likes to apply a lot of weak kind of had lost a little bit of weakening application. So yeah, thank you. Good. More enchantments. Thank you. Necrobinder. Reworked Borrowed Time. Cool. Was uncommon. Costs 0. Apply 3 Doom to yourself. Gain 1 to 2 energy. Now it is an uncommon 1-cost skill. Gain 4 or 6 energy. Costs 1 additional energy this turn. Ooh. That's a fuck ton of energy, actually, though. That's an insane amount of energy. That is a crazy amount of energy. But, oh wait, cards cost 1 additional energy. It's all cards. Oh. So it literally makes souls cost 1 additional energy. Yeah, that's really good with X-cost cards. That's a dirge combo right there. That's your dirge applicator right there, man. That's the dirgening. And I like it that it's borrowed time because it does make your turn then shorter in terms of card usage. So you are on borrowed time at that point. That's really cool. This would go particularly well with cards like Reap and Bury. I like the idea of that. Now, will it work in reality? We will see. Rework the Doormaker Grasp Ant turn and power. Now attacks for 20 to 23, and the power is reworked to whenever you play a card. Wait, this is the third one? This is the third of the cycle? So technically turn 4? Whenever you play a card, lose 1 energy? That sounds redonkulous. Wait, that sounds so insane. That's evil as fuck. Including playing Sly cards. Oh, shit, you're right. That's tough sounding. But again, you gotta figure out how to play with it. Okay. Silent buffed Leading Strike. Shivs increased from 1 to 2. Okay. But the damage is down to 3. Ooh, okay. Yes, please. I like more shivs. Yes. Blade of Ink, more shivs. This, more shivs. Okay. All you're doing is increase the value of the boot here. Nerf speedster damage. Wonder how necessary that is with the Doormaker nerf, or the Doormaker buff. Wonder how necessary that is. Nerfed Untouchable again? Dude, this card was like barely fucking played in the Sly. Like out of all the Sly cards, this card is probably like the least used Sly card. And now they just keep nerfing it. That's crazy. You know what I think they should have done? Maybe as an option, is keep it at 7 to 9, but make it 3 cost. Because I feel like sometimes I'm just playing it because it's like a weaker defend, you know? But make it 3 cost. So that it's like only good when I play it off of a discard. So it's legit just bad. No, it's a Sly card. So this is, if you discard it, it plays. That's what I'm saying. Like it's fine. Changed History Course Relic. When it plays a copy of an X cost card, it now uses your current energy for the X value instead of the energy spent the last time the card was played. Note, it still plays the copy for free. I like that and I dislike that. I like that because it's a nerf buff. Because sometimes you draw your whirlwind at the end of your turn and you play it for 0 as like an ornamental fan value or a nunchaku value or a penniv value, etc., etc. And then that would then make it play at the beginning of your next turn for your maximum energy for free. Versus I play Stardust for 12 buy stars, and then next turn it plays by 12 buy stars for free. It's just a different type of setup. But maybe this one just feels less busted out of its fucking mind. Yeah, it's probably a nerf that's actually like targeted at like Stardust. Oh no, man. Oh no.
Dude, I actually, like, one in the chat if you actually thought Korra was in such a good spot after the changes. Like, I actually thought it was in such a good spot. Like, I thought it was, like, actually borderline fucking perfect. Like, he doesn't even give a fucking explanation for that. It's just, no, it's there now. It's not a huge increase. Are you fucking dumb? It is a huge increase because it attacks on all turns.
If you increase the damage by 1 attack, but then it doesn't have an off turn of attacks, that's greatly increasing the damage that it deals. Buffed the fur coat. Oh, yeah, honestly, this feels like a bug fix to me. Yeah, the fur coat is the one that gives things 1 HP in Act 3. And it's saying that enemies that respawn will now have 1 HP. That makes sense. Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Okay, nerfed Hungry for Mushrooms event. Fragrant Mushroom option upgraded cards decreased from 3 to 2. Okay. It changed Waterlogged Scriptorium event. Prickly Sponge option gold cost lowered from 155 to 99. Tentacle Quill gold cost lowered from 65 to 55. Cool. Cheaper. Money. Nice. Buffed Whisper Willow event. Exchange option gold cost decreased. Okay, dude, there's a lot of fucking gold decreased. We've gotten gold, more gold in the game. Relics are cheaper, but then just Act 3 or Ascension 6 or whatever. Ascension 6. Okay. Bunch of art. We'll have to go check them out. Added new art for the Ruby Raiders. Added background art and VFX for Phantom boss fight. Wait, what? I thought the Phantom boss fight was actually cinema. Tingles, even. Phantom's even crazier now. Added new visuals for the following afflictions. Bound, entangled, galvanized, hexed. Yeah, we saw this. Wait! Fixed unsettling lamp relic, doubling the strength you get from dominate. No, man. Who reported that? Which one of you fuckers snitched? Jorbs did? Wait, did he actually? The relic read as if it should give you double strength. It doubles the card effects. I saw Jorbs doing it on stream. Jorbs is on my shit list now. It doubles debuffs, not buffs. No, so what it says the first time you debuff an enemy, double the card's effects. That's what it says. That's what the unsettling lamp reads. It needs to be reworded because that read, like when I was getting double strength and then I read the thing, I was like, wait, that's such a sick thing. That makes sense. And I think it's like the only card that like actually that does it with. Because that's the only card that like is like a yes and type thing. But I guess that like would mean that you need to like deal double damage on like a high 5 card or something. But no, high 5 does the damage and then applies the vuln, right? So that's why it wouldn't deal double damage, right? Frost is right. Each combat, the first time you play a card that debuffs an enemy, double its effect. Like it actually reads as if high 5 should deal double damage. But I wonder if it was doing it because of the order of operations. Like, because Dominate does the debuff first, and most cards do debuffs last. Because Piercing Wail also applies the amount of remove strength down. See? Wait! No, the card, we need to agree that the card, or the relic should be reworked in wording, because the wording is incorrect. It should just say, first time you play a card that debuffs an enemy, double the debuff's effect. That's all that it needs to say. That's what it needs to say. It needs to say, double the debuff's effects.
He's an arsonist on a noble quest to escape the wrath of the IRS. He's got conflicting positions in the endless fight for queer folks